Nurlan Nigmatulan Nur Otan Nurlan Nigmatulan Nur Otan CIS member state legislative elections were held in Kazakhstan on the 10th of January 2021 to elect the members of the Majlis. This was the 8th legislative election in Kazakhstan's history since its independence. It coincided with the 2021 local elections. This election marks the first to be held under Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's presidency and the first since 2004 to be held at the normally scheduled date, rather than due to an early dissolution of the Majlis. The ruling Nur Otan party maintained its dominant party status in the Majlis by winning 71.1% of the vote and sweeping 76 seats. However, it fared worse than the prior election in 2016, losing 8 seats and 11.1% of votes, while two parties nominally in the opposition, present in the Majlis since 2012, performed better, each seeing a small gain in votes and seats. Despite some expectations, the other contesting parties failed to reach the 7% electoral threshold, and thus were not able to enter the parliament. Several opposition groups called for a boycott and protests in the elections, citing lack of openness and fairness. The only registered party which poses true opposition to the government, the nationwide Social Democratic Party, refused to contest the race, while other groups encouraged to tactically vote for the AK Jol to at least draw away some votes from Nur Otan. The legislative election saw a voter turnout of 63.3%, the lowest since 1999. The Assembly of People of Kazakhstan indirectly elected its allotted 9 members to the Majlis on the 11th of January 2021. Campaigning was focused on issues such as reforms enacted by President Tokayev, economic hardships caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, social issues, land sales and the agricultural sector. The election was plagued by several corruption scandals regarding former President Nursultan Nazarbayev's circles, diplomatic issues between Kazakhstan and Russia over controversial land claims, as well as pressure and crackdowns on human rights groups, journalists, activists, and election observers. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe called the elections as low-key with lack of genuine competition, as all the contesting parties supported Tokayev's policies or espoused pro-government positions. The new session of the Majlis first convened on the 15th of January 2021. From there, Nurlan Nigmatulan was re-elected as the Majlis chair while Askar Mamin was reappointed as the Prime Minister after being nominated by Tokayev to the post following the 2016 Kazakh legislative election. The ruling Nur Otan party maintained its supermajority control of the Majlis, which it has held since 2007. After Nursultan Nazarbayev's resignation from the presidency on the 20th of March 2019 and the snap presidential elections which were held on the 9th of June 2019, newly elected President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev in his inauguration on the 12th of June promised a continuation of Nazarbayev's policies in the country's development and social and economic reforms. Despite the resigning from office, Nazarbayev still holds the title as Elbaisi, remains as the chairman of the Security Council of Kazakhstan for life, is the Nur Otan party chairman, and a constitutional council member, while his eldest daughter Dariga Nazarbayeva held the post as the Senate chair, the second line of succession in the country after the president. Many analysts consider Tokayev's presidency to be temporary, and would only serve as a bridge for an eventual transition of power to Nazarbayeva. Throughout the course of his presidency, Tokayev proposed numerous reforms, such as laws on public rallies which excluded provisions requiring official approval, reducing the required number of members in political parties to be registered, offences such as slander and libel being removed, and hate speech laws being more specific and less harsh. After the adoption of the law in May 2020, it received criticism from Kazakh and international human rights activists, who noted that the newly reformed rules still fall short of international standards, such as barring non-Kazakh citizens from organizing and joining protests and limiting public assemblies to only designated locations. Many talks arose of possible snap legislative elections, with Tokayev announcing the possibility of it being held in April 2020. However, after the outbreak of COVID-19 in Kazakhstan in March 2020, which resulted in nationwide lockdowns and quarantine measures, The idea of an early election was put aside as the Kazakh authorities were forced to contain the spread of the virus. Tokayev instructed the government to implement certain fiscal packages, such as increasing state pensions and welfare payouts by 10%, providing more tax breaks for small businesses and boosting spending on subsidies in order to limit the economic impacts of the virus. He also called for monthly pay of 42,500 per person with kits including food proj.